Do you know that Western powers have long used psychological weapons to fight and destroy any African revolutionary leader who dares to challenge neo-colonialism and imperialism? This silent but deadly weapon has been used time and time again on legends like Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Muammar Gaddafi and Kwame Nkrumah. It is not always bombs or guns that kill a revolution. Sometimes it is the manipulation of minds, the distortion of truth, and the engineering of public opinion. These powers understand that to eliminate a leader, you must first destroy their image, assassinate their character, and turn their people against them. Today, the same tactics are being deployed against Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. His bold stand for African sovereignty has made him a target. But this time, Africa is watching, awake, and ready to resist. The weapon being used is psychological warfare, through media propaganda, false narratives, and international pressure. Black Stories Untold is here to expose these strategies, to awaken the minds of our people, to defend our leaders who dare to say, Africa must rise for herself. We must understand the game, or we will always be pawns in it. When Ibrahim Traoré began his reforms, reclaiming gold, expelling exploitative companies, building Burkina Faso's industries, he became a prime target of the global disinformation network. First came the whisper campaigns. Burkina Faso is unstable. Terrorist attacks are increasing under Traoré. He is allied with Russia. He's dangerous. None of these claims were rooted in balanced reporting. Instead, they were amplified through the Western media giants, CNN, BBC, Reuters, painting Traoré as an unpredictable, corrupt strongman who must be removed for the sake of stability. They used African media outlets too, funded by NGOs and Western-backed democracy promotion groups, to spread confusion among the Burkinabe people themselves. The same tactics were used against Kwame Nkrumah in the 1960s. Ghanaian newspapers suddenly turned against their own president, calling him a dictator, even though he had built more schools, hospitals and roads in a decade than any other African leader at the time. They used it against Thomas Sankara. They called him a radical, even though his radicalism was feeding the poor, immunizing children, empowering women, and refusing World Bank debts. They used it against Patrice Lumumba. They painted him as a communist stooge, even though his only crime was loving Congo and its people more than colonial masters. They used it against Gaddafi. They accused him of human rights abuses while ignoring that Libyan citizens under him had free education, healthcare, subsidized housing, and one of the highest living standards in Africa. Now, Ibrahim Traoré is the new target of this invisible psychological war. The question remains, why such desperation? Why such fear? Why such hostility to African leaders who simply want to serve their people? The truth is brutal, yet simple. Africa's resources are the lifeblood of the Western world. Africa holds 90% of the world's platinum. Africa supplies over 70% of the world's cocoa. Africa controls major reserves of gold, diamonds, oil, uranium and cobalt, critical for modern industries like smartphones, electric cars, aerospace and more. Without African resources flowing cheaply into Western economies, many European and American industries would collapse under their own weight. When a leader like Ibrahim Traoré insists that Burkina Faso will refine its own gold and sell it directly to global markets, bypassing Western middlemen, it triggers a direct threat. Higher costs for Western companies, loss of control over critical commodities, a dangerous example for other African nations to follow. If Burkina Faso succeeds, what about Mali, Niger, Ghana, Congo, Sudan, Tanzania? If Africa rises and demands fair prices, ownership of its wealth and internal development, the Western economies that for centuries grew fat on African exploitation will begin to starve. Thus, in the cold calculus of power, it is cheaper to eliminate one African leader than to lose access to trillions of dollars in future profits. This is why they fear Traoré. This is why they feared Sankara, Lumumba, Nkrumah, Gaddafi, and others. This is why they will do everything to stop him. Yet, something new is happening. Unlike the era of Nkrumah or Sankara, today's Africa is increasingly aware. The internet, social media, independent journalism, and African consciousness movements have spread like wildfire. When Wode Maya visited Burkina Faso and reported positively, it wasn't just a YouTube vlog. It was a direct counterattack against the disinformation machine. When young Africans see images of Traoré building factories, taking back mines, and defying foreign exploitation, they see a reflection of their own suppressed dreams. Across Ghana, Nigeria, Mali, Senegal, and beyond, young people are asking deeper questions. Why must we beg for loans when our land holds more wealth than Europe combined? Why must we accept leaders who sell our birthright for a few $1 million? Why must we fear standing tall? Massive protests in Burkina Faso, cheering for Traoré and rejecting ECOWAS orders, show that many Africans are no longer deceived by the old tricks. A new African consciousness is rising. It is a consciousness that understands that democracy without economic freedom is a hollow shell. That sovereignty without resource control is meaningless. That dignity without self-sufficiency is an illusion. For the first time in generations, African youth are watching carefully. They know what happened to Lumumba. They know what happened to Sankara. They know what happened to Gaddafi. And they know what is being plotted now. Africa is learning, and Africa is remembering. If, and it is a big if, Captain Ibrahim Traoré survives the onslaught coming his way, the future of Africa could be dramatically altered. Imagine an Africa where resources are processed locally, creating millions of jobs. An Africa where gold, cocoa, oil and diamonds are priced by Africans, not by London or New York. An Africa where infrastructure, roads, hospitals, factories and schools is built with African wealth, not foreign debt. An Africa with a united economic front, trading with itself before begging for crumbs from outside. This is not a fantasy, it is possible. It was once the dream of Kwame Nkrumah's United States of Africa. It was the dream of Sankara's self-reliance. It was the vision that Lumumba, Gaddafi and others dared to glimpse. And it is the dream that Ibrahim Traoré now carries. At great personal risk, they buy our gold, oil, diamonds and cocoa, pay us peanuts, sell them at sky-high prices on the international market, then lend us back the same profits as loans, and say we owe them. That is the new slavery. They don't need chains anymore. They don't need whips. All they need is a briefcase full of cash, a weak president, and a foreign contract dressed in legal English. Our minerals disappear. Our forests vanish. Our oil flows away, and we clap for them. Why? Because they built us a road, a bridge, a loan that our grandchildren will repay in suffering. We mine the gold, they wear the jewelry, we grow the cocoa, they eat the chocolate, we dig the cobalt, they build the Tesla. Africa works, the world profits, and when we beg for money to build schools and hospitals, they lend us back the same profits they made off our land. But this time, with conditions: privatize your water, cut your public wages, let our military base stay, and if you say no, they strangle your economy, sanction your leaders, sabotage your elections. And when an African leader rises and says, "No more," they come for him. Lumumba was tortured and killed. Sankara was betrayed and shot. Nkrumah was overthrown by CIA-funded traitors. Gaddafi was bombed and left for dead, all because they loved their people and hated exploitation. Now, Captain Ibrahim Traoré is walking the same road. He took back the mines, raised the taxes on foreign companies, started building a gold refinery, said no to foreign control, said yes to Burkinabe pride. And now, just like before, the accusations begin: dictator, dangerous, corrupt. Because that's always the first step. They turn the people against him, then they destabilize the country, then they send in their mercenaries or their peacekeepers. But this time, something is different. Africa is watching. Africa is awake. The youth are no longer silent. The lies don't land like they used to. We know now, when you try to leave the bondage, they destroy you. They eliminate you. But what if, this time, we protect the leader? What if we defend the land, defend the future, defend the truth? This is not just Traoré's battle. This is our battle. For every drop of sweat our ancestors gave, for every field we tilled, every mine we dug, this is our story, and this time we will tell it. Because until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter. But the lion is learning, and Africa is rising. But the battle will not be easy. As history shows, before eliminating a leader, the Western powers will manufacture false scandals, spread misinformation through paid influencers, create armed rebels and fund internal sabotage, use economic sanctions to cripple the economy and cause civil unrest, isolate the leader diplomatically, finally, justify physical removal, whether through coup, assassination, or foreign intervention. We have seen it before. We are seeing it again. Thus, it falls on Africans everywhere, the youth, the elders, the workers, the intellectuals, to open their eyes, sharpen their minds, and prepare their spirits. Africa must defend its true leaders, not betray them. For if we allow them to be destroyed one after another, we condemn ourselves to eternal slavery. But if we stand, if we resist, if we unite, then perhaps, at long last, Africa will be free. Subscribe to Black Stories Untold to help liberate Africa from centuries of exploitation, deception, and neo-colonial control. Join the movement. Be the voice, be the fire, be the revolution. Black Stories Untold. This is where the truth lives, and Africa rises.